If you feel like you're not the same gender every day, you just might be gender fluid. Hi there. Do you feel like a boy sometimes, but also like a girl sometimes? Well, you never have to choose again with gender fluidity.
No, the reason why children do not need to choose their own gender is because gender is not a choice. Gender is biological, and before you say, well, Marcus, there's sex and then there's gender, same thing. Well, what about gender identity? What even is that? And that's coming from a trans person.
Being gender fluid gives you the best of both worlds. Man or woman? Both. Transgender or non-binary? Both. Binary or non-binary? Both.
How exactly can it be both? I hope you guys can read my mind because I'm not allowed to say what I really want to say right now. I'm thinking about it right now. You got it? Moving on.
Do you sometimes feel trans, but sometimes feel like an imposter who's totally not trans at all?
I wish I had that choice. Why on earth would I go on testosterone, get my breasts cut off, and get sterilized by hysterectomy if I had the choice not to? If my gender dysphoria was fluid, I wouldn't look like this. And I would live a very different life. But here's the thing, buddy. Gender dysphoria is biological. Gender dysphoria is binary. And being trans is not a choice. Again, I wish it was. Stop talking to children about trans. They don't need to know that it's a thing. Did you think I heard of trans growing up? No. But look at me today. I find it to be so creepy that there are so many adults that really want to talk to children about QIA+, TQIA+, maybe. I'm not accusing all these people of being, a word I can't even say, because that's not the point. You can be creepy without being a criminal. So,
Are you outside the binary of cisgender man and woman, but have a gender that's kind of wiggly squiggly?
so you think a child can have an identity, whatever that means, specifically a gender identity. How does that work? Do you know the definition of what it means to be a child? Children don't know anything. They don't know anything about life or about themselves. Did you know everything when you were a kid? No, I didn't either. But the beautiful part of this is they will eventually figure out who they are. And they can actually do that all by themselves, without your help. Just so you know.
Are you both straight and gay for women, but also straight and gay for men, and definitely gay for non-binary people? If you feel like a boy but in a girl way, or a girl but in a boy way, you don't ever have to choose again with gender fluidity.
Do you ever struggle? Are you ever miserable? Well, don't you worry. You don't need to struggle ever again. Join my church, I was about to say. Join my cult. I know I'm not supposed to say this according to the guidelines, but it is kind of creepy that you're a grown man talking about children's sexuality and sexual orientation. Like, can you please not?
Everyone has elements of masculine and feminine, and we are all welcome to accept these qualities of ourself and others.
Well, that's not true, because why else would you create this gender identity called gender fluid? Why can't you accept that some girls are masculine and some boys are feminine? Why can't you encourage children to just be themselves and say, well, you don't actually need to change your gender or identify as gender fluid. You can actually be yourself as a boy or a girl. And why is it that what I'm saying right now is considered to be hate speech? And why is it what he's saying is considered to be stunning and brave? Make it make sense.
And if you feel like you're not the same gender every day, you just might be gender fluid.
What does it mean to be a boy and a girl? If a child is a biological female, they're a girl, no matter what. They can't do it wrong. I know it's surprising, but you can actually not fail being your biological sex. That's coming from me. I would still be a woman no matter what I do in life and no matter what I look and sound like. Because, my biology cannot change. Yours can't either. It's not only inappropriate, but it's also extremely intolerant to say to children that they can actually do their gender wrong, therefore they need to identify as something else. There's a million ways you can be a boy and a girl, and you don't need to change your gender just because you're different. I love science and biology.
But you guys know that children cannot consent to medication. So how do we protect trans kids? This sort of thing is for grown-ups. And some people may say that some gay or lesbian children are being forced into a cult. So when you say protect trans kids, I don't get it. I think we should leave kids alone.
Well, protecting trans kids is leaving them alone from the Tories.
Oh, so we should give them to, like, doctors who chop their breasts off and...
They don't chop off kids' breasts.
Yes, they do.
No,
In America, they do. There's clinics all over America that do that. In this country, thankfully, it's banned, so we don't have to worry about it. But in America and other places, they do chop up young lesbian breasts off. How do you feel about that?
A better way to argue with trans activists like them is to say, well, if it did happen, would you be against it? Because often if you hear, that's not happening, it's because these people are for it. But they don't want to say it up front. But here they actually get the opportunity to answer if they're for it or not.
Anyway.
To check your sources on that.
Okay, but listen, nobody is against you guys. Nobody wants to fight LGBT people, but what normal people like me who's a dad have an issue with is some people with funny ideas speaking to children. I'm not talking about 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, I'm talking about 8-year-olds, 7-year-olds. It doesn't happen. So that's your answer, is to deny it happens.
Well, if it doesn't happen, what does your sign mean then? Why do these activists always look miserable? Is this really trans joy? Because I don't see it. I was planning on saying more to this video, but that's it. Ask them, if this did happen, would you be against it? That's it. Haja.
I'm gonna talk about the difference between trans mask and trans man. It's somebody who identifies as a masculine identity. And then this is the definition of FTM. It is somebody who transitions from female to male. And while trans mask is recognized as an umbrella term that encompasses FTM, many transgender and transsexual men do not identify as trans mask.
And I'm gonna add on to that, do not acknowledge trans mask as a real thing. It's kind of interesting he used the word transsexual. Good for you. Trans mask is a masculine identity. What?
Personally, I am FTM. I identify as transsexual. I do not like the label trans mask to be used for me, and my reasoning is because if I feel as though it waters down my identity to just masculinity, when that's not the case.
I did not see that one coming. Wow, I'm so glad I didn't see this video before. So a trans-identified person with purple hair and piercings is identifying as a transsexual. It's funny, I gave him some credit just a second ago, so I must sense his energy is different. But it makes perfect sense. Trans-masculine doesn't mean anything. Trans-feminine, or trans-femme I think it's called, doesn't mean anything. Those are terms that fake trans people use to validate themselves, I guess, and their experiences. And it is actually insulting to call people like me and him trans-mask, because we did a little bit more than most trans-mask people. We actually went through a medical transition.
My identity is male. I am medically transitioning into male, not masculine. And many transgender and transsexual men agree with me. Now, why I'm even talking about this is because a lot of people on this app specifically like to force the trans mask label onto transgender and transsexual men when they do not feel as though that label fits them. So many people like to preach that people should be able to identify as this and identify as that when they don't respect that on other people.
Preach! Oh my god. What I don't understand either is how the same people who invent new genders, new identities every single week, also are trying to erase the already existing identities and the definitions of those identities. Like, why? You can literally do whatever you want. You can create so many new communities, so many spaces. Just don't ruin my space. My space. Maybe we don't agree on a lot of things, but I think it's cool that he's making this video. I think you all can imagine that it's not easy if you're a part of the community to make those types of videos. I literally do not care if we disagree about everything else. You gotta give credit where it's due. It seems like he's actually thinking for himself, and I think that's great. Thank you for watching this video. If you want to see more content like this, remember to hit subscribe and the notification bell. You can become a member of this channel where I make exclusive content, so if you want to join us, there's a link down below. Follow me on social media, and I'll see you all in my next video. Peace out.